Well, it got very quiet all of a sudden. Everyone was chatting. Wow, well, it's such a nice evening, and thank you so much to everybody for being here. Just delightful. I just want to welcome you to our Multilingual Perspective Speaker Series. This is 2026, and this is the 4th year of our event, and a very, very special evening for us tonight. My name is Maria Cody, and I am the Goodnight Distinguished Professor in Education and a Professor of Multilingual Education. We do it, yep. I organize a speaker series, and so I hope that you'll check out our website and see some of our other speakers, and I'm so delighted again that we have the honor of our secretary being here with us. Just so special. I'd like to orient you to the program this evening, and I'd like to make some very important thank yous to people that are here in the audience. First, I'd like to thank Dr. Cardona and his staff that have been super amazing to work with and delightful, and a very special thanks to all of the team and for Dr. Cardona for taking time and being here. I'd like to thank the Goodnight family for their ongoing and continued support for this work in our College of Education and for the work supporting multilingual learners. Very warm thank you to the Goodnight family. I'd like to thank the dean's staff for their support and promoting our event tonight. And a very special shout out to my friends and kind of family to the American Association of University Professors who are here tonight. Woo, thank you for advocating for the work that we do in university settings and making this work possible. And another couple thank yous, if you'll just bear with me. If you are a member of the Bilingual Education Student Organization, that's BESO. Anyone know what BESO means? Please stand up, okay? Thank you. All right, thank you. Muchas gracias a todos. Muchas gracias. Sí. The Bilingual Education Student Organization are working in PhD and graduate programs to prepare the next generation of bilingual educators. So we're delightful for their work. And a special thanks to Suzanne Clayton for assisting with this award and for this evening tonight. I would be remiss, a few more thank yous, not to thank Cassie Rubenstein. Is she here? Cassie in the back, okay. The beautiful programs with the bios and the QR code in the corner that you can use, those are all Cassie's mastermind. Great job. Thank you, Cassie, for always making these events so beautiful. Thank you. We have in the house tonight the Carolina Association for Bilingual Education. So if you are a member of CARABE, could you please stand? Thank you. Okay. Thank you. And that's so important because these are the people and leaders in our state that are doing the work and promoting bilingual education and multilingual education across the entire North and South Carolina region. So you all are the backbone. Thank you for your service and advocacy. And a couple more thanks, and certainly last but not least, I would like to invite you all to stay after this event for hors d'oeuvres and more music by RJ Musique, who's up here playing tonight, our Latino jazz. I love it. I have to say, I love it when I say, Rody Huertas is here with us tonight. He brings his sound from Puerto Rico. Muchas gracias, Rody. And I say, Rody, we have an event. Can you come and play? And he'll say, sure, we can play, but we can't stay out too late because we have school the next morning. They're teachers. They're wonderful. So thank you, Rody. And we have Regio Gaston. Hola, Regio. Okay, playing for us from Uruguay. Julian Destin from North Carolina. And we have Irving Ade with his Cuban roots. Thank you, Irving. Okay. That's great. It's a lot of thank yous, but really, I appreciate it. Now I'd like to introduce for you the Dean of the College of Education, Dr. Paula Stein. Paula is the Dean of the College of Education at NC State. She previously served as the Interim Dean under the Vice Provost for Academic Personnel and Policies and Associate Dean for Research and Innovation in the College of Education. She is a Professor of Mathematics Education, and her research focuses on elementary teachers' professional development. Please welcome Dean Stein, who will introduce our honorary guest tonight.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Cody, and thank you for organizing this wonderful event to bring together our community of multilingual educators, multilingual learners, such a powerful opportunity. So thank you so much, Maria, for this opportunity. It feels a little lonely here with this empty row. So I would like to invite some of our students who chose to sit in the back of the classroom to move to the front if you can. It is really more welcoming. So please join us here in the front. I told Dr. Cardona I'm gonna try and bring some people to come this way, but please do join us here in the front. It is my distinguished honor. Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you. You see, now I already feel better. You know, I'm like, oh, okay, this is gonna be great. Thank you so much. So it is my distinguished honor today to provide an introduction to Dr. Miguel Cardona. He served as the 12th U.S. Secretary of Education from March 2021 until January 2025. Secretary Cardona was born in Meriden, Connecticut, and grew up in a Spanish-speaking household with parents originally from Puerto Rico. I have a glass on the floor there, just be careful. She moved and I'm like, ooh, I have a glass of water, sorry. So he grew up, I'm gonna re-say this, he was born in Meriden, Connecticut, and grew up in a Spanish-speaking household with parents originally from Puerto Rico. He started public school in kindergarten as a bilingual English learner and graduated from Wilcox Technical High School, where he learned to work on cars and automotive technology. Secretary Cardona began his teaching career as a fourth grade teacher in Meriden. At 27 years old, he was named principal of Meriden's Hanover School, making him the youngest principal in the state. He went on to serve as assistant superintendent for teaching and learning for the state of Connecticut, and then he serves as education commissioner of Connecticut from 2019 to 2021, the first Latino to hold that position, before being tapped as U.S. Secretary of Education under the Biden-Harris administration. Secretary Cardona earned a Bachelor's of Science in Education from Central Connecticut State University and a Master of Science in Bilingual and Bicultural Education. He earned his Doctor of Education from the University of Connecticut. His education and career have been devoted to addressing achievement disparities between students. And his educational platform as Secretary of Education included the concept that multilingualism is a superpower. So I love that idea, yes, absolutely. He initiated the Raise the Bar initiative with a greater focus on language development for multilingual students, particularly through dual language immersion programs. And he released dual language playbooks on immersion policies after conducting national focus groups and convening several educators. North Carolina was one of the key states that he visited and he highlighted when he conducted his work. So before I invite Dr. Cardona to come here, we want to share a brief, about 5-minute video that talks about his why for this work.
Born and raised in Meriden, Connecticut. I went to local public school. I'm sitting in a classroom that I attended about 45 years ago when I started school, John Berry Elementary School. And it's the place where I chose to stay, where my wife and I chose to raise our kids. This is home. My grandfather was a sugarcane farmer, and he ended up cutting tobacco here in Connecticut and formed strong roots into this community. You know, my father was a police officer for 32 years, so he was serving the community, and my brother, my sister, and I saw that, and it must have, you know, impacted us. My brother became a police officer, my sister's a social worker for schools, and I became the teacher.
He's full of energy. He lights up a room, any room that he walks into. always giving back to the community, always celebrating his multicultural background, being bilingual, never being afraid to show where he comes from.
He stood out as a teacher, and then he became a principal. And I was so proud when he became Commissioner of Education in Connecticut.
And then the pandemic hit. Rolled up my sleeves, worked with folks from all over the state to reopen schools, and that put me on President Biden's radar because we did it quicker and safer than other states. I just took it as a blessing and was so thrilled, to be able to serve in that capacity. I signed up to change public education, to improve access and outcomes, and I was ready for a fight. So when we fought to reopen schools, within 9 months we had over 97%. We were ensuring that social emotional well-being was taken care of for our students, providing $190 billion in aid for our schools. Only half of Congress voted for that, but 100% of the students in this country benefited from it in terms of social workers, reading teachers. There were more students in summer school during the Biden-Harris administration than in the history of our country. More students accessing after-school programs than in the history of our country. I'm proud of the $190 billion in debt relief. 5 million people in this country got debt relief. We keep talking about wanting to elevate the profession. You do that by focusing on what I call the ABCs of teaching, providing educators with agency, better working conditions, and competitive salary. Because when we take care of our educators, we take care of our students. I'm sitting in a classroom in a district that is currently 85% free and reduced lunch. Yet, I went from here to advise the president on behalf of 65 million students. That's the power of public education. Yeah, it's tough right now, but how blessed are we that we're chosen to lead at this time when students need us the most? And I could walk around, woe is me. Instead, I think about the sacrifices of those that came before me, who gave up a hell of a lot more than I'll ever have to give up, just so that I could be in this position to fight.
He loves seeing students succeed, instilling self-confidence in every student. There were moments in his life where he had some naysayers, early on. He was called Michael. He was not called Miguel. Finally, he asked the secretary, can you please pull up my transcript? What does it actually say on there? And they said, oh, it says Miguel. And he said, can you just make sure that everyone calls me Miguel Angel Cardona from this day forward? It's exciting just seeing the little Miguel to now where he's become a great leader in our community.
I love the way he supports bilingual education and calling it a superpower. We all knew that, but he came out in public and really made the statement because of what he stands for in education.
I still have the same sense of urgency that I had when I was a 4th grade teacher. The work is never done. I almost feel that I'm failing if I don't use every moment, every letter after my name, every title that I have to push for those kids who right now are under attack, who don't have a voice. Shame on me if I don't get up with energy to fight for them, because that was me. I always used to say education was a wilted flower. Schools were closed, there was a lot of mental health issues. And then we became the master gardeners that brought it back to life. That's our role, to really lift up education and make it from a flor pálida to a vibrant rose. To me, it's a powerful symbol of we are descendants of folks who tilled the soil, of farmers, of field workers. We are the descendants of them. And now we're doing different type of gardening. We're gardening education and we're bringing it back to life. We are the master gardeners that our children need.
Really wonderful. Secretary Cardona, thank you for all you have done to support multilingual learners everywhere. as well for being a real champion for education. Thank you for being here. Thank you for getting us to this point where we have the honor of have you here at NC State. So please join me now in welcoming Secretary Cardona to the stage.
Thank you. Wow. Really an honor to be here. Thank you for the kind introduction, Dean Paula Stein. And what a beautiful setting for a beautiful conversation. I see the musicians up there. Let's give the musicians another round of applause. And a very special thank you to Dr. Maria Cody. The good night. You know, her leadership in research and multilingualism, but also I got to know her a little bit closer over the last 6 months as we were working the logistics and the particulars for this event. And the passion that she has, you know, I've traveled all 50 states in the last 4 or 5 years. The passion that you have, the drive, the commitment to doing, not only for our students, but for our educators what's right is something that I'm really proud of and inspired by. So thank you for your leadership, Maria. It's an honor to join you all as part of the 2026 Multilingual Perspective Speaker Series and to be here at North Carolina State University. I had an opportunity a little while ago to connect with the Chancellor. He came in, we were chatting for a little while, and it was a great conversation, great to get an understanding of the things that are valued here and the fight for our students. It was a good conversation, so good that he even got his wife on the phone, which was interesting. I got to meet her too. It was a great conversation. And thank you to all the amazing North Carolina teachers and education leaders who are in the room. Quick survey, how many elementary folks are here? Raise your hand. Good. How many middle or high school folks are here? Awesome. How many university folks are here? Excellent, excellent. And I hate to say other, but anyone else that didn't fit that category? Good, good, all right. State folks, good, thank you for being here. How many from rural communities that had to drive far to get here? Thank you, thank you. It means a lot that you're here. And I know as secretary, one of the things that I learned was that in our country, we do not focus and talk enough about the needs of our rural communities. Thank you. As I speak to you here at North Carolina State, I want to take a moment to draw inspiration from one of this university's most famous graduates, Christina Cook. She came from a small town called Jackson, North Carolina. Growing up in the 60s and 70s, she watched as this nation entered the space age and landed a man on the moon. And as early as 5 years old, she was telling people that she too was going to become an astronaut. Well, as some of you may know, Christina did become an astronaut. In 2019, she broke the record for the longest continuous time in space by a woman. And she's part of the crew of the Artemis II mission that will very likely make her the first woman to circle the moon this year. It's important to remember that at the time that she was growing up and telling people she wanted to be an astronaut, no one like her had ever been to space. Every American astronaut had been a man, and none of them came from rural Onslow County. So it would have been very easy for her to get discouraged. It would have been easy to say, being an astronaut is clearly not an option for me. It would have been easy for the adults around her to point out all the things that at the time made it a lot less likely that she would ever get to her goal of being an astronaut. But that's not what she remembers. Instead, she remembers that not one of her teachers discouraged her. In fact, they encouraged her potential. They supported her dream. And when she completed astronaut training, many of her past teachers reached out to her and congratulated her because they remembered how much she wanted to be an astronaut. She finally did it. Think about how special it was that Christina got the benefit of great educators like the ones here in North Carolina public schools. Educators who see assets, not deficits. Educators who lift up potential, not problems. Educators like you, thank you for all you do for North Carolina students. Christina's story is a powerful reminder of how much difference it makes when we see students in terms of their superpowers. But when it comes to bilingualism and English learners in our nation, for too often, many people in this country see the deficit perspective. We start with the assumption that certain things are holding students back. That's why there are 4 words that I always say whenever I go to different places, and I repeat it and I don't get tired of repeating it. Bilingualism is a superpower. And in case I forget, I wear a bracelet that says it. Those 4 words, bilingualism is a superpower. And not only that, being biliterate is a superpower. Being bicultural is a superpower. I've said those words in speeches all over our nation. I've said it in the White House. I've said it on Capitol Hill. I've said it in states from California to Connecticut. And then someone recently asked me, why do you refer to it as a superpower? And it brought me back to my time when I was a school principal at Hanover Elementary School in Meriden, Connecticut. We had a bilingual education program in that school. We had a program for children with developmental delays, children with spectrum disorders. We had a program for children who are learning English, my bilingual education program. It was a wonderful school. It was like a mini UN. We had Puerto Rican students, Mexican students, Dominican students in the bilingual education program. And as the principal, it was my job to make sure that every student felt welcome and seen in that school. But I could tell among some students in the bilingual program, there was a deficit mentality. A feeling of being less than. A feeling of not measuring up. And a lot of times that was reinforced, unintentionally maybe, by some of the adults around these students. By some of the systems that were set up in the school. Even worse, this was during the time of No Child Left Behind. When if you had 20 or more students from a specific subgroup that didn't make mastery on the mastery test, the whole school was labeled in need of improvement. And the newspapers would write them as failing schools. As a matter of fact, I remember, that school, when I served as principal, was a really high-performing school. And because we had a subgroup of students, 20 or more, who were bused to my school from different parts of the community, that school was labeled in need of improvement. Think about how damaging that mentality could be for those students and those families. Think about how much beautiful God-given talents are left behind because there's a signal that these kids have a deficit instead of gifts to embrace. I'll never forget walking into a PTO meeting one day, and I had a parent, a very prominent parent in that school community, who innocently came up to me and said, hey, I saw the paper today, the newspaper, and I saw that, Hanover is a failing school. Is it because of those kids? That hit me, man. So when I say bilingualism is a superpower, I say it for those kids. I say it for the young people who may feel less capable when they look at a whiteboard or a test paper and don't understand the words right away. For those kids who think in Spanish but speak in English, like my wife. I say it for those kids who might not understand that their knowledge of multiple languages and their ability to code switch and culture switch is a powerful gift. That their brain development is more advanced than monolingual learners. And I say it for the amazing bilingual and multilingual language educators who work so hard every single day to lift up those students and the incredible assets that they have. The hardest working educators I've ever had the privilege of working with are educators that serve multilingual students. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Make no mistake, I'll never get tired of saying that bilingualism is a superpower. Our students need to hear it. Our communities need to hear it. Our nation needs to hear it. El bendito presidente needs to hear it. So let's shout it from a mountaintop. I've seen it in my own life's journey. It was because of my journey that the president chose to call me secretary. You know, you could read about my accomplishments through my professional bio, you could Google it, but it doesn't capture my journey, so allow me, as Jay-Z says, allow me to reintroduce myself. This is who I am. About 60 years ago, my grandparents left the paradise of Puerto Rico for the projects of Connecticut. With his second grade education, my grandfather, he was a foreman in the sugarcane fields in Puerto Rico. He was a foreman, he had dignity, he had a position of authority. And then Domino Sugar came, bought all the land, and got rid of all the employees. So he had to move literally to those projects that you see up there, on the 4th floor, to work in Connecticut. And why Connecticut? Because there were tobacco fields in Hartford, and he could use those skills of sugarcane farming on the tobacco fields. So he moved to those projects when my dad was really young. Both my parents came to Connecticut when they were young. My mom, the one in the middle, in the picture up there with the hand, the big hand waving high, she was about 13 years old when that picture was taken. That was taken in Puerto Rico, Aguada. Soon after that picture was taken, her mother had throat cancer, and they had to come to Connecticut so she could get better care. A couple years after that picture, my mom had to drop out of school to take care of those kids in that picture. Her mother was dealing with cancer, and my mom's job now is to raise the younger siblings. A betting person wouldn't necessarily put money on them or me. Growing up, I was economically disadvantaged, Hispanic, English learner. I attended the worst performing elementary school in one of the worst performing districts in the state of Connecticut. I was in the district where people buy houses outside of to send their kids. To this day, that district remains the least funded district in the state of Connecticut. But that's all I had. That's all I had. All I had was what the local public school provided. All I had were teachers that believed in me more than I even believed in myself. All I had was a community that didn't reduce me to my deficits, but took the time to learn about my potential, my interests, my curiosities. You see, I was born rich, but with few material possessions. I had what was important. I had a loving family. I had my faith. And I had a public school system that knew how to take a piece of stone and chisel it until you get to the diamond inside. I had an educator who changed my life. That educator was Linda Ransom, and it's important to name them publicly. Linda Ransom was my high school art teacher. One day, Ms. Ransom saw that I was using a watercolor painting to talk about racial justice. And she suggested that I turn that little piece of artwork into a bulletin board in the cafeteria. So I did. I was so happy. I think I grew like 3 inches that day. I put it up in the cafeteria, and then the newspaper came and they took a picture of it. And they put it in the newspaper. For you young folks, a newspaper is a piece of paper. Usually it comes in the morning. And then they had black and white pictures. Man, that lifted me up. I felt seen. I felt heard. Later on that same year, Linda Ransom gives me a tap on the shoulder and says, you know, Miguel, you could be a teacher. I was like, what? No one in my family had ever gone to college. I was studying to fix cars. And she goes, you could be a teacher. That tap on the shoulder. That tap that you provide every single day for those kids. So what do you do when somebody who you believe in, somebody that believes in you more than you believe in yourself, gives you that tap on the shoulder? What do? You listen. So I became a teacher. This picture was actually taken hours into my first day of teaching ever. It literally was. I don't even know who took it. I don't remember. Selfies weren't invented back then. What does it say on the back bulletin board? Let the journey begin. Guys, I was like 21, 22. I didn't know what life had in store for me. I just wanted to help those kids in front of me. I'm still on that journey. I am not defined by my last title. I am still on that journey. That tap on the shoulder put me on the path to becoming a teacher, and it made possible the journey that led me to advise the President of the United States on issues that affect 65 million students across the country. And let's be clear, it was being bicultural that helped me get on President Biden's radar as a potential Secretary of Education. It was who I am and where I come from that gave me the confidence to walk into the White House and advise the President on issues affecting students all over the country. It was my ability to code switch and culture switch that gave me the adaptability to navigate every challenge I've faced as a leader. It wasn't in spite of my lived experience, it was because of it that I was best prepared to serve as the Secretary of Education. So I'm sure in your folders you have a little thing that says, don't change your stripes. That's what that means. I didn't have to hide who I was to be looked at as a potential secretary. No. It was my ability to go from the barrio to the briefing room and not change who I am that made me the candidate that he wanted for that position. Bilingualism and biculturalism have been my superpowers. And I often talk about the fact that, you know, that code switching and culture switching that we have to do sometimes, right? Where you have to navigate a certain way of doing things and then go into another space and totally different crowd and you have to navigate that space. That came in handy when I was trying to reopen schools in Connecticut. I needed to sit down with the union leaders and be like, okay, what is it that you're concerned about? Because different isn't bad. It's just different. And then I went to the business leaders who were like, you need to reopen schools. I had parents telling me you're going to have blood on your hands if you open schools too quick. I had parents telling me you're going to have blood on your hands if you don't, because the kids are in the street. It's that ability to be able to be in different spaces and look at people with different perspectives and say, I value your perspective. I may not agree with it, but I value it, and I want you at the table when I make decisions. I learned that by code switching and culture switching as a kid. And it came in handy when I was serving as a leader during a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. It's a superpower. Remember I told you that teacher that tapped me on the shoulder, Linda? I had the privilege of bringing her to the Oval Office about a year and a half ago and letting her sit in the chair, the secretary's chair. And as I walked with her through the Oval Office, through the West Wing and the White House, you know, her mouth open and just, I'm like, you made this possible. I was 16, 15. You saw something in me I didn't see. If you ever wonder why I never stopped fighting for public education, Why I'll never stop fighting to lift the profession and fight for educators. It's because of people like Linda Ransom and my lived experience. I had only what the public school provided. In a community that wasn't as desirable, but that community produced the only Secretary of Education. We can and we'll make sure that every bilingual or multilingual student in America recognizes that they too have an incredible superpower that can take them very far. And when we talk about multilingualism as a superpower, it doesn't just mean it's a great skill to have. It's an asset for the whole community. Folks, in 2026 and beyond, we have to start thinking past the moral imperative, because being multilingual is an economic superpower. Multilingualism is an economic superpower. 85% of U.S. employers say they rely on Spanish, while others say they rely on Chinese, French, or Japanese. An hour ago, I was having a conversation with Chancellor Howell, and he was talking about his visit to a rural community here in North Carolina. A small business owner has business in Ukraine. Something with hogs. I didn't know what it was, but something with hogs. But whatever it is, now it started as a small business here in North Carolina. Now they have clients in multiple countries. Does it help to have multilingualism, multicultural perspective? Of course it does. Does it help business? Yeah. Several studies point to greater incomes and competitiveness for bilingual workers. Not surprising when 96% of the world's consumers and 2/3 of its purchasing power actually reside outside of the United States. When I was Commissioner of Education, I think you call it Superintendent of Instruction here. In Connecticut, I was a commissioner. I used to tell the governor all the time, a strong education system is your best economic driver. We also know that multilingualism is a cognitive superpower. Here, I want to go back for a moment to the story of Christina Cook, the astronaut who graduated from North Carolina State. When she talks about what she takes from growing up in her part of North Carolina, the first thing she points to is the diversity that came with being near Camp Lejeune. She talks about how she grew up around so many different people from all over the world, so many different languages, so many different ways of being. Flash forward to her time as she was training to be an astronaut, where she had to switch up her mindset and skill set from one complex task to another. In the morning, she might be flying a supersonic jet. In the afternoon, she might be learning Russian, which is one of the most difficult languages to learn. Now, even though Christina didn't learn Russian growing up, there's a good chance that the diversity in languages she was exposed to as a child helped strengthen her cognitive adaptability. In fact, there's a growing body of research, you know this, that demonstrate how multilingual people develop higher creativity, problem solving, greater flexibility and control over decision making. Go figure. It almost goes without saying that there are tremendous assets in whatever career you choose. I know I'm speaking to the choir here. I know you know the research. As a matter of fact, one of the things that used to bother me, I have a degree in bilingual bicultural education. And one of the things I didn't get is, why is it that the research has been out there for a long time and we don't follow it? Cummins, Crashens, Collier. What's going on? Next week, I have the privilege of inducting Ophelia, Virginia Collier, and Thomas into the Multilingual Hall of Fame. Yeah. In Chicago, yeah. I'm going to be emceeing that with my wife. And you know who else is getting inducted? Gladys Labus, that educator that was a mentor. You know, there are people, folks, we got to be on offense, lifting up the great work that we do. But the research has been out there. And now the research on economic superpower and cognitive superpower is out there. And I have confidence that with your support, your advocacy, we're going to lift that up. It goes beyond the data. Here's what we also know from our experiences. When you honor a student's language, you honor their identity. I'll never forget when I got interviewed by President Biden, and then I had a separate interview with Vice President Harris. And, you know, the president said, all right, I'm going to call you tomorrow at 11 o'clock and tell you yes or no, because I have to interview other people. I'm like, oh, man, I'm not going to sleep, you know? So whatever. He calls the next day. My wife was home. My kids were home. True story. And that was at the time when we were, you know, working from our basements. I had like half a suit on and shorts. You know, like, it's Zoom. Nobody knows. So anyway, he calls. I go upstairs. I put it on speaker. My wife and kids are home. And he invites me to serve as Secretary of Education and join the team. And I was just so emotional. Not just because of the position, but because of the sacrifices of those that came before me. And then he hangs up. He tells me, you're going to get a call from somebody on my team. About an hour and a half later, I get a call from somebody on his team, like he said. They said, we need you in Delaware tomorrow at 3. I'm like, whoa. We're going to introduce you as the Secretary of Education. So I didn't know what to expect. So my wife and kids would get in the car. We go to Delaware. We make it there at night. They put us up in a hotel. The next day, literally, I go to this hall like this. There's a camera, CNN, Fox. It's crazy. Oh, and I had like 20 minutes to write a speech. I'll never forget it. But I got in front of that microphone, and I was debating whether to say it, and I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. I was introduced to the country, and I told them, I'm as American as apple pie and rice and beans. That I was born here. I grew up with rice and beans. Mi cultura is la cultura americana too. We're here. We add value. And it was my way of saying my bilingualism, biculturalism is part of my identity. And it's part of our students' identity. So when you affirm their culture, you build their confidence. It's also a big reason why the seal of biliteracy is so important. And why we need to make sure that seals of biliteracy are being treated as much of a big deal as those honor cords that we give our students when they graduate. We know the seal of biliteracy is one of the most transformative recognitions in our schools today. It celebrates our students' ability to think, communicate, and lead in more than one language. It's a signal to colleges and to employers that says, this student can connect across cultures. This student can adapt between different contexts. This student can lead in a global world. Across the country, the seal has motivated students, engaged families, and opened pathways to college and career. So adopt it, advocate for it, celebrate it. We can't talk about empowerment without talking about action. And let's be honest, this year has not been an easy year for educators, especially bilingual educators. Schools are being asked to do more with less. Policies are shifting. Culture wars have crept into our classrooms and into our boardrooms. Funding is tight.
Funding is definitely tight.
Funding is tight. But the challenges are not barriers, they are calls to action. Every single one of us have an opportunity in this time of need, in this storm, to level up. At the school and classroom level, it starts with how we teach. We elevate bilingual programs. For too many multilingual students, they're still walking into schools where they feel like they have a deficit. Actually, I have a video of what it feels like to walk into some of our schools as a multilingual learner these days. That's an actual classroom. How many of you felt like that sometimes walking into a room or walking into a classroom? We just want to fit in. Yeah, I know it's tough. You just want to fit in. You just want to fit in, man. You want to fit in so much, you're a beautiful parrot and you start meowing. Except our kids are meowing in an accent. And even, no matter how well you meow, you're still not a cat. You're still being looked at like, what is that thing on your head? We must help our students realize that they're beautiful and perfect the way they are built, that they have a beautiful sound, that they sing beautifully, and they have superpowers that they don't have to hide in order to meow. They are beautiful parrots with beautiful songs, and they don't have to assimilate to be respected. Another call to action is engaging families as partners, not as bystanders. At the district level, it means investing in teacher development, building pathways to recruit and retain more bilingual educators. Educators, teachers, it also means helping build capacity in the leaders to understand bilingualism as a cognitive and economic superpower. I really believe if we can come together around building capacity so people understand the benefits. This is not a red or blue issue, this is a green issue. Money, economic superpower of bilingualism. And I can tell you from my position as a teacher, as a principal, all the way through, the toughest job we have is managing up. That vertical collaboration, vertical calibration. Let's commit to leveling up. It's tough work. Leveling up also means for leaders, whether it's the local or state level, to providing what I call the ABCs of teaching. You know, people talk, oh, we have a teacher shortage issue. Meh. The teacher shortage is a symptom of a teacher respect issue in this country. And because we don't have enough acronyms in education, I came up with one for this. It's the ABCs of teaching. Provide agency for teachers. You got a master's degree plus. Like, you know what you're doing. Let's provide agency so that they can act as the professionals that we know that they are. Let's provide B, better working conditions. And what I mean by that is making sure that schools have school social workers, counselors to support students, making sure the class sizes are not ridiculously high where you can't meet the needs of students. And for God's sake, let's not normalize the fact that our classrooms are 98, 100 degrees in June. We wouldn't allow that to happen anywhere else, but we allow it in our schools. Better working conditions. And better working condition also means pathways to careers. You don't have to leave the classroom to be a teacher leader. What are we doing to give you options if you have interest, as your career develops? We have too many people leaving the profession. And then C, competitive salaries. In this country, we've normalized that teachers make 24% less than people with similar degrees in other professions. We've normalized the fact that in about more than 30 states, teachers qualify for state assistance. We've normalized the fact that teachers have to drive Uber or bartend on the weekends to make ends meet. That's wild. I often wonder if the profession was 75% men instead of women, would we still do that? And because of I said the ABCs, but I'm going to throw a D in there. Diversity. Diversity. Because diversity is not a bad word. And the way I frame it is we have to make sure that our students are seeing and being educated by a professional workforce that is beautifully diverse as them. So those are the ABCs and Ds of teaching. And then moving up to the state level, and I do appreciate that there are state folks here because we're all in this together. We're all on the same mission. We need to continue to push for policies that expand dual language programs. Help legislators understand the benefits. And, we don't only, I really need us to evolve our thinking. And as a former commissioner of education, I would tell you, I need to tell legislators, look, these laws are going to help our students become more economically successful, will bring back money into our economy. It'll bring businesses to our state if we do it well. It's not just the moral imperative, it's the economic imperative. Let's do everything we can to make North Carolina a model of multilingual excellence for the rest of our nation. Let me tell you already, North Carolina, you've shown what multilingual education leadership can look like. You had one of the nation's pioneering early programs in dual language when Bruns Elementary School in Charlotte started the first German immersion program in the country. And since then, North Carolina has been a model of intentional collaboration between public and private sectors to recruit bilingual educators and build out language programs. That leadership has made North Carolina 5th in the nation for dual language immersion programs. Celebrate your successes too. Celebrate your successes too. Nearly 250 schools in the state have a K-8 dual language program. That's the kind of leadership I want to see everywhere. So remember, what you accomplish here matters everywhere. How you lead in North Carolina can raise the bar throughout the nation. And then at the national level, what can we do differently? It means amplifying our voices, uniting educators across the country to advocate for federal support in multilingualism. We shouldn't be in independent pockets fighting for the same things, but not talking to each other. That's what's happening. Just last night, I was in California talking to leaders around the same topic. We have, in different states, a lot of advocacy around the same things. How great would it be if we could unite and work together? We could do that. We are who we need. When local action aligns with state and national advocacy, the impact multiplies. Look, I know this is a tough time to be leading and tough time to be an educator, especially if you believe in the power of bilingual education. We've been through tough times before. It's worth remembering that the Seal of Biliteracy first started in 2012 with a small group of advocates in California at a time when California had a policy that effectively banned bilingual education. English-only instruction was the standard there for about 18 years. So the Seal of Biliteracy that we celebrate today started amid adversity at the state level in California. It took that storm to create the passion and the drive to invent the Seal of Biliteracy. That was in 2012. Fast forward 2 years ago, I had the honor, serving as Secretary of Education, to announce that we accepted our 50th state that celebrates the Seal of Biliteracy. It's all over the country now, thanks to the efforts that started in California in the middle of a storm. So I want to challenge you to think about this. What will the next North Carolina version of that story be? What is the initiative that will start here today that we'll push to replicate nationwide someday? And the next time there's a Secretary of Education who fully embraces multilingualism, will he or she turn to North Carolina for the model that other states should use to raise the bar? I hope so. It could be right here. It could be all of you leading it. Who better than you to shape the direction our country takes in multilingual education? Who better than you? I want to conclude with a quick story that reminds me about the stakes of what we do. A few years ago, as Secretary of Education, I visited Independence Hall in Philadelphia to commemorate the 235th anniversary of the signing of the Constitution. There I walked into the room where it happened, to borrow a line from Lin-Manuel Miranda's Hamilton. I went in there with a few members of my team at the Department of Ed. With me were the son of Egyptian immigrants, another whose parents came from Japan, both born and raised here. And then there was me, the Latino Secretary of Education, the grandson of a tobacco farmer from Puerto Rico. Not one of us who walked into that room where our Constitution was signed would have been represented in the room where it happened more than 200 years ago, or for many years to follow. But that's testament to our nation's incredible ability to both endure and evolve. When we make it possible for more people to thrive in our nation, we live up to the highest ideals of America. And when we fulfill more of our country's incredible potential as a place of beautiful diversity, as a place where so many God-given dreams and talents come together, remember, we are who we need. This is why I fight for English learners and bilingual education. This is why we keep the faith and we lead boldly and unapologetically, even when it seems really tough out there. We've already accomplished so much together, and we're far from done. We can't be done until every student in America has the opportunity to become multilingual. We can't be done until every English learner is celebrated for who they are and what they bring to this country. And we can't be done until the idea of being bilingual as a superpower is as obvious to everyone in our nation as it is to us. We're blessed to be leading and serving and educating at a time like this because our kids need us more. It's easy to do it when things are going well. Yeah, it's hard. How blessed am I to be able to lead and speak at a time like this? As the video said, my sacrifices are small compared to that of my grandfather, who gave up his dignity to live in an apartment complex that was smaller than my living room so that I could have a chance to go to school. I'm honored to continue to fight for bilingual education. I'm honored to stand with you and say, no, we know what's right. Kids, you have superpowers, and I'll never stop fighting for you. How blessed should you feel that you chose a profession where you could do that for students? So let's push harder than ever to make progress. Let's fight for more dual language programs, more bilingual, multilingual educators, more seals of biliteracy for more students. Let's fight for the dignity, for the respect that our students deserve for being the gifted learners that we know they are. Friends, your voices matter now more than ever, and your actions matter now more than ever. This is the best time to be in service to students who need us now more than ever. So let's speak up, let's step up, and let's lead the way to transformative change together. Pa'lante, mi gente. Muchas gracias. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It means a lot. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I'm going to take some questions in a minute, but before I do that, I always fail to mention, those are my hashtags or whatever they're called now. So if we take pictures and you put something up, tag Teach Cardona, visit me at cardonasolutions.com. You know, it's really the journey. Remember the Let the Journey Begin? Well, this chapter in my journey right now is really about saying, what do you believe in? How do I connect my personal why, my family's sacrifices in giving me what I have, and my professional why, fighting for public education? How do I bring those together? That's the journey. That's where we are, and that's where I want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. Thank you, Maria. And thank you for the work you do. All right, so we're going to take some questions, and then Maria, how much time do we have for questions? 20 minutes. Okay. All right, 20 minutes. So what I'd like to do is just ask you to, feel free to ask any type of question. It doesn't have to fit this. Anything that's on your mind, as Kevin Hart would say, get it off your chest, right? Just say it. Just say it, and happy to answer. Yeah, we have one over here.
My name is Ijoma. I am originally from Nigeria. I am more like your grandfather that left Puerto Rico to come here. I left Nigeria. I left everything I had to give my children a better chance. but I was an educator before I got here. And having been here in North Carolina, I have been teaching children, multilinguals, and children with special needs. And my big question now is how it is that a child, because of their IQ, cannot be allowed to take languages. And how are we going to help that? Because as teachers, we have little ability to make changes. So if you are an educator and you want to make changes, how do you reach out? What do you do? That's my question.
Thank you. Can you repeat the part of the question? The sound, I couldn't hear it. Something about IQ, the IQ part.
Yeah, I teach special education,
Yep.
and I also teach multilingual learners. And as a teacher, I was told that because students are not, because of their IQ, they are not allowed to take French, Spanish, and other opportunities in the school. They are restricted. And as an educator, that does not sit well with me. So if I want more opportunities for my kids, how do I go about that? Because that's why I leave my house every day, to make sure children get opportunities. Yeah.
And thank you for sharing your story and your transition. And you made me think of the fact that sometimes our students who are learning English have parents who were professionals in their native land. And that's why I say parents shouldn't be bystanders. They have skills that can add value to our community. So thank you for sharing that. And first of all, multilingualism is not something that I think we should be sorting who does it, who doesn't. There are students who have limited cognitive ability that can understand different languages as well. I think, but without getting too specific in your district, which I don't know the details of, I do know that some districts have to pick and choose how they're going to use their resources, and they may not have resources that work with children who are significantly developmentally delayed or whatever. I don't want to speak to that because I don't know the details of it, but what I will tell you is that multilingualism is a skill. It's not just developing another language, it's also honoring your native language. For children who have exceptionalities, sometimes the best way they learn is if you could tap into what they already know, their existing schema, and you build L2 off of their L1, right? Isn't that basic, right? So to me, it doesn't matter what the cognitive ability is. If anything, if they have a lower cognitive ability, it makes more sense that you start with their L1, and then you build off of that. Yeah, okay, so I talked a little bit about vertical alignment, managing up. And if I were cynical, I would say, it's a tough place, they don't care. I tend to lean, especially with my 4 years in DC and what I see with leaders across the country, it's not a will, it's a skill. They may not recognize they may not know what you know. They have not had your lived experience. So to the degree that you could build capacity moving up the chain, and my mentality is, you're going to get a lot farther if you could work with people. When I was reopening schools in Connecticut, it would have been easy for me to write off those unions and be, you're giving me a hard time. How do I help build their capacity about a shared goal where everybody wins? So I think the role of teaching has changed. The role of leadership has changed. How do we build alliances around shared values? And in that room, you're going to be the expert that teaches the leader how language development really works. See what I'm saying? So it's not just kids. The kids are the easy part of the job, right? They're cuter, too, than the adults. Thank you for your question. Others? I have a question up here, Beatriz. And then we'll go to her, Maria, over here.
Gracias. Disculpen la voz. Un placer estar aquí
Gracias.
presente, doctor. Mi nombre es Beatriz Chate y soy peruano-americana. Y soy nueva aquí en el estado. He trabajado en Texas, Nuevo México, Nueva York. Y mi pregunta a ustedes, how important is it for a state to offer, to support bilingual certification for teachers? I've kind of developed the idea that it's very important for state to provide, to allow, to support bilingual certification for teachers to work in transitional bilingual, dual language programs. However, as of late, I've also learned the challenge that teachers pursuing bilingual certification have, because oftentimes they are required to have monolingual proficiency in Spanish and or English. And these are bilingual people that are not two monolinguals in one. And they often, not all, but sometimes they can't meet the standard of Spanish proficiency, like a native, or English proficiency as a native, and they're withheld, right? I support initiatives in other states where for teachers to become certified and work in those highly demanding jobs. And so, like, I see there's a struggle, and I felt like, you know, it's just like we are doing. Not only are we doing this to our students, expecting them to be two monolinguals in one, we're also doing this to our teachers who want to support our students. It's like they're not two monolinguals in one. And so I thought, well, is it? And then I started doubting myself about, like, well, maybe it's good that some states don't have bilingual certifications, because then maybe they won't be pushing that mindset. But at the same time, I think like it lacks, you know, the state that doesn't support that type of certification lacks as well. So I don't know, I wanted your insight. Thank you.
Sure, thank you for the question. It's really complex and nuanced. And I'll be honest with you, you know, I was born in Connecticut. I learned Spanish first, and then I learned English when I got to school. And then as I went on, I noticed that my Spanish was getting weaker and weaker, and the job helped me get it better, but my Spanish is not the top. I speak like Bad Bunny Spanish. It's just like, I cut off syllables and L's and R's. De aquí nadie me saca, anyway. So, look, when I was Commissioner of Education, I was dealing with that too, right? How do we keep high standards while not making it, you know, shooting ourselves in the foot? Right? I knew as a school principal, if I didn't have a bilingual certified teacher, I was rotating substitutes every, I think, 45 days. Which is crazy. That's damaging. So at that moment, I might be like, look, just give me somebody that can speak both languages, that I can work on with pedagogy and good teaching practices, right? But at the same time, we must have high standards for our profession, because this is not a hobby. Too many people think of it as a hobby already. There was one state, it won't go mentioned, but there was one state that said, well, if you're married to somebody in the military, you must be a good teacher. Where the hell's that come from? If we're going to elevate our profession, we have to have high standards as well. We have to have supports. But we also have to have high standards. You know, that's not an easy answer to that. What I will tell you is, who better than the people in this damn room to figure it out for North Carolina? So do what I did when the pandemic hit. Lock yourself up in a basement. Get on Zoom with people from different perspectives at all levels and say, let's find common ground. Something that in this country we know very little about these days. How do I maintain academic rigor? As a father, I want a highly qualified teacher in front of my children every single day. I'm not compromising that. But I also know that if this public education thing is going to survive, we have to do a better job and evolve how we provide support for pre-service teachers. Because if I look outside, there's not a long line of bilingual education prospective teachers, right? Same thing with special education. So how do we provide support, high standards, and how do we do it with your fingerprints on the plan? What worked in Connecticut for me wasn't that my plan was perfect. I had fingerprints of people with different perspective on it. And then we made it better as we got along. The innovation is not in the what, it's in the how. And I can support. You got problems, I got solutions. Cardona solutions. All right.
I just wanted to give you a perspective, okay?
Sure.
I moved here in 1996, and I have seen the landscape change. When I tell you I have seen it, I have seen it. I am fully bilingual, bicultural, by the way. Grew up in the inner city of Chicago. And yes, I had to take all my English methods and all my Spanish methods, and boy, those freaking accents killed me. But I got them. Since I've been here, I have seen how we have changed. There's more of me, right? I could see myself now in you. But when I came here, I was like the little cartoon, the little...
The parrot, yeah.
Trying to fit in, right? And of course, I still have an accent, which I love, right? But just to say that is that I have seen how we went for not having many Latino students to all of a sudden we had an influx of Latinos. What are we going to do with them? What do you mean, what are we going to do with them? We're going to teach them, just like we teach all students. And I have seen that. I was I started the dual language programs in Chapel Hill, and they're still going over 20 years. So I have been an advocate for dual language. I have been an advocate, and it's funny when you were saying put your fingers and your
fingerprints, yeah.
Everywhere, that's me. That's me. Because I believe that we need to advocate, especially when we see the girl of our students, when we see our students hiding, because they don't know how to fit in. And you know, when I walk anywhere, I walk so proud because I am proud to be fully bilingual, bicultural. And I carry my nopal in my forehead, and no one's gonna tell me differently. So I just wanted to say that, yes, I have a DR in front of my name, and it makes it even more powerful. And I have Latino students, when they ask me, are you a doctor? Like, what type of doctor are you? I said, I'm not gonna fix you, like if you have a headache or anything like that. I'm a doctor of education, and I could help you to become better. Anyways, it was just a perspective. I just want to say thank you for being here, because when you're here, I see myself reflected in you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And if you need a poster for Don't Change Your Stripes, it's you. Yeah. Really? No, it's true. And look, this is an extension of our life's purpose. This isn't a job. It's an extension of our life's purpose. And I'm going to be honest with you, you're never going to punch out. You're never going to be like, all right, we're fixed, everything's done. It's what we signed up for. And just stay connected to your why. Continue to build capacity up, help with the policy development, continue to be that cockatoo in a room full of cats, and know that you represent what's coming. And your point, when I say American as apple pie, rice, and beans, what I mean is these are our kids. These are our schools. So we have to evolve to meet the needs of our learners, not put them over there or say those kids, right? So and then we all win. When we do it well, we all win. This is an American education issue that we have to work together to solve. So thank you for that perspective. One or two more, Maria, does that work? Okay, one or two more. I'll let the people with the microphones decide, because I'm not. Okay, you got it? Okay, good. We have them already. Thank you, sir.
Yes, hello, Dr. Cardona, thank you for this.
Thank you.
This is a kind of apropos with everything that's going on. So there's a little bit of an elephant in the room, right? That's kind of a paradoxical statement. But we're talking about multilingual or bilingual children and stuff that are in these schools that are scared, right? There's ICE outside there, their parents and stuff. So how do we grapple with trying to empower them and make them feel like superheroes when they are scared to even enter the classroom?
Good question. When I was assistant superintendent in my hometown, it was 2017. You do the math. My Mexican kids wouldn't show up to school. And as a father, I didn't blame them. It was tough. You can't escape the reality of what's, and like I said, I was in California yesterday. My answer to that question would be different in California than it is in North Carolina or Florida or Texas, right? And that's why I want to be here, because I want to tell you that I recognize and respect the burden that you're carrying. How much more important you are to those kids and those families when you tell them, I'm going to do everything in my power to keep you safe, and I know you have a superpower. They need to hear it more in communities where they're in fear. That's the bottom line. And I'm going to tell you something. What's today's date? February 6th. 5 years ago, we were dealing with the impossible. We didn't have vaccines. We didn't have tests. Literally, I was on the phone every morning with the governor and our cabinet in Connecticut as a commissioner of education, hearing about how New York, the epicenter, they didn't have enough refrigerated trucks to hold dead bodies. And they're asking me to open schools? I'm not asking you to do something that I've never done. I'm asking you to walk into the fire. The fire will sharpen the sword for the fight ahead. I needed that experience as commissioner where I didn't want to do it. I was looking at my wife, I'm like, why the hell am I doing this? Like, this is crazy. This is not what I signed up for. She said, have faith and trust the people around you and lead. And a year after that conversation with my wife, I was now secretary. There's a plan. Sometimes a storm moves us into our purpose. We are in a storm. Our children are in a storm. And my mentality is, you look them in the eye, you tell them that you believe what they have is a superpower. Like that astronaut who's, in the 60s and 70s, that astronaut never had a teacher that says, you can't do this. You are more important now than you were when I was secretary. You are more important now than when I was secretary. You got to look those kids in the face and say, I believe in you. It's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. I don't have the answers, but I'm not going to leave your side. That's what Linda Ransom did for me. Thank you for that question. We'll take one more.
Greetings. Thank you for being here. Jacques Taylor.
I saw you on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
all
right.
right.
I proudly serve as a school board member in a small district here in North Carolina. So my question is, do you think states should offer state testing for multiple language? And do you think this will increase educational gains and data for our bilingual learners?
Thank you for that question. So the question was, should we be providing tests in different languages for different multilingual learners? Did I get that right? All right. I'm going to tell you a story. I'd never confessed this, so don't tell anyone, all right? So when I was what happens in North Carolina stays in North Carolina? Oh, that's Vegas. Oh, damn. Too late. I'm already started. Sorry. So when I was a school principal, I was a young school principal. I was 27 when I got it. By the time the year started, I was 28. I was overseeing a school during the NCLB era where my kids had to be tested in English. And I had these new arrivals that came from Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Mexico, and they were taking a test in English, and I had to sit them in front of it until they were crying, and I was furious. So I'm like, yo, I'm not testing their cognitive ability. I'm testing, do they know the language? Why am I doing this? It was silly. And I remember I went to a session with a congresswoman. It was like this, and she was standing here talking, and I was over here. And I'm like, should I do it? I'm going to do it. So I raised my hand, She calls on me. I'm like, ¿qué tú piensas si nosotros le damos el examen en otro idioma? And she's like, what? She didn't know Spanish. I said, ¿qué tú opinas si uno le da el examen en un idioma que ellos no entienden? I'm sorry. I said, that's my point. I'm giving kids a test in academic language in a language that they've not yet learned because they just got here. That's not fair to ask you a question in a language you don't understand. You got a bunch of degrees. I'm doing it to 9-year-olds who escaped poverty and like my mom. It was probably rude and like a little, I shouldn't have done it that way, but my point is, this is a policy thing that doesn't have a quick answer, but what I will tell you is let's stop grading schools, let's stop judging kids, let's stop calling them those kids. If our assessments are not aligned to pedagogical standards, number one, language development standards, number two, it's sometimes we like charts and line graphs so damn much that we forget that instrumentation does matter when we're doing validity tests. I think it was Alfie Cohen said that the fact that we're so enamored with tests make us vulnerable to their misuse. So people want black and white on this, there's a lot of gray. I'm a big believer in more performance assessments, formative assessments, but those are harder to make and harder to standardize. But it doesn't mean that it's not the right way of doing it. And if we can't afford it, if we can't do it, then let's not use a bad test to then put those students down here, and then we wonder why they're not engaged, and we wonder why they don't succeed in school. Then we wonder why we put a scarlet letter on their face and call them special education, or we give them the ay bendito effect, pobrecito, poor kid. Let's just accept good behavior and lower our standards. The biggest crime we could commit, the biggest educational neglect we could commit for our multilingual learners is to have low expectations for them. So the assessment goes to that. But the thing is, North Carolina, you're not alone. There are 50 states that are grappling with this, and the 50 states are not always talking to each other. So that's where I feel that my job as secretary wasn't to come up with all the great answers, because God knows Washington, D.C. doesn't fix problems, they create problems. My job was to say, hey, talk to Tennessee, or check out what Texas is doing, or look at Massachusetts, what they're doing with their assessments. Look at what other states are doing with their teacher certification. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. And that's where I feel the innovation is not in the what, it's in the how we do business. Okay? Thank you for that question. Look, I could go on forever because I got a flight tomorrow, but I know, especially you rural folks, and I want to see you, and I want to take pictures with the rural folks, because if you could get in your car for an hour to come listen to me speak, you're special. And because you did that, all the rural folks, take tomorrow off. Thank you very much. God bless. Thank you.
Hold on, don't leave.